Hello everyone, welcome back to this week's video. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your post notifications. This week we're going to be talking about the ending of our honeymoon. I think we left off at our train ride to Italy.
Yeah, because we took the overnight train to Italy. We didn't say where we went before, but that's where we went.
And it was a lot of train rides. It wasn't just that initial one. We had to take a few different trains to the end of their stop to get to the Cinque Terre. And
yeah, so we started out there. We went to Monterosso, which was the first stop, which was the northernmost, what would you call it, town?
Yeah.
Basically, village of the Cinque Terre. So
it was
yeah, we
gorgeous
started
there.
It was.
We stayed there amongst all of the little villages that we stayed at. I think there were 5, right?
Yep.
Five. We stayed a couple nights at each, and I think Monterosso was the first one that we spent the longest time at.
Yeah, we spent like 5 days in Monterosso.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
We did a lot of hiking. There was a lot of walking around. There was like separation between when you got there at the train station, there were like beaches and like boardwalk kind of thing going on, and then you go through the tunnel that's carved through the side of a cliff, and you're basically in the downtown area, the older part. So that's where we had our Airbnb, was in the older part. Yeah. We didn't stay at any resort or anything, and there were a lot of resorts.
Yes, tons.
Yep.
I think that the Airbnbs that we chose to were more homely, and we got to really meet some of the locals that were there that were allowing us to stay at their places, which was also a cool experience. Yeah. While we were in Monterosso, there were a ton of hiking trails. Like you could hike from where we were staying to the next village, which was Vernazza, or you could go to the villages that the train passed through on your way there. And we did that one night, and it was so cool. We were exhausted, our bodies were aching because we had already done so much traveling, but we decided to go up to the top of this random trail that we had no idea where it went.
Yeah, there were a ton of steps. There was a lot of hiking around that area. I mean, there were hiking trails that connected to the north and the south every way, if it wasn't washed out by the ocean. But we got to the top of this, however high we were, probably like 900 feet. And we hiked.
Just kept going.
Yeah, we just kept going. And it took you to like another hill over a small distance. And we actually saw some locals. So this is what we noticed, like different, because we like to hike. We're pretty fit people. So we noticed there, though, that if you encounter somebody local on a hike and they happen to be a nice person, well, this person just kind of showed us this. They held their hand out like this, and they showed this they picked this berry off the side of the trail.
We'll insert pictures too, so you guys can see. And
we ate it out of their hand, basically. They gave it to us, and it's like, that wouldn't happen in where we're from. So that just wouldn't happen.
And also we were curious about what those were our entire time as we were up there, because there were some that were ripe or on the ground that
was just growing on the side of the trail. Yeah.
And then after we left Monterosso, we backpacked to Vernazza, which was the next place that we stayed, and that one was wicked cool too. It was different and unique compared to the first one. It was a little bit smaller though.
It was.
And we stayed right up by the train station, which we thought was probably not going to be the best because we might not sleep at night.
Yeah, it was kind of loud.
Yeah, but I don't think we heard it as much as we thought we were going to.
No, they had a good way of shutting out sound at that Airbnb.
Okay, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. We also forgot to mention that we took a day trip to Portofino.
Yeah.
To get there, we also had to take the trains. And when we got there, there was a town.
It was a town called, I think it was Margarita or something. And
pass through.
We walked around a little bit, and then eventually we found a bus that took you from Margarita to Portofino. And the bus ride was crazy because they just
sketchy.
Yeah, they drive how they drive. They just have to fit in between places. And then we were in Portofino, which was just, there were a lot of wealthy people. You know, I'd say extremely wealthy, because there were yachts parked in the harbor. So
Yeah, it was a beautiful place though to just walk around, and it was so small too that you could really go and like we walked all the way out to the end, and there was a lighthouse and a bar. You could just sit and grab a drink, and then there was a castle there too that was up at the very top, kind of.
yeah, there was a castle that you'd have to walk to it. And you had to go up a significant amount, and then you paid like, it was ridiculous. You only had to pay like €5 and you could walk through the castle, and apparently Napoleon had lived in the castle.
It was beautiful.
It was crazy. And then there was this, I mean, if you were afraid of heights though, going up to the top of the castle and standing and looking out was, it was like it was made for shorter people, because I'm 6'1". I mean, it's kind of tall, not that tall, but still, you felt like you could fall off the side. So even in some of the rooms, it was like that in the castle.
The doorways too.
Yep.
All right, so back to Vernazza. When we were there was a storm, and they had this really cool area where you could like sit out by the water, and then there were a ton of boats and stuff, and the waves were just crashing up over, and not a lot of people were out that night.
It's hard for me to remember specifics on each place, because they were all different but very similar. So I remember that. I actually didn't remember which village it was.
It was the one where there was that cave that you had to walk through to get to the beach. Yeah, that was really cool.
I remember that one. I just don't remember exactly which one that was.
Yeah. Also in Vernazza, we ate a lot of pizza, carbs, and everything like you would if you were going there to eat Italian food. But we also saw so many cats.
Yeah.
Just on the street hanging out, and you could pet them. They were so cute.
Yeah, but even food, I mean, you could have pasta. There was a lot of gnocchi everywhere. Basically every menu had gnocchi if they had pasta, and then pizza.
With fresh pesto.
Yeah, and then pizzas, they were super simple, but they were amazing.
What was your favorite?
I don't know, just a basic margarita pizza, which is a cheese pizza basically with oregano.
Yeah,
and that's about it.
That was the best one.
There was local wine, but you had to buy it by the bottle, so we don't drink that much. We did have a glass of wine at almost every dinner, but by the bottle, I mean, it was like crazy expensive, so we weren't going to drink enough wine in one night. We can't both finish a bottle and feel okay the next day. So
yeah, and since we were busy bees on that trip, we had to make sure that we weren't feeling terrible the next day to continue on.
So,
in Vernazza as well, there was the castle that we were able to walk up to, and then also pay a small fee to go inside and explore. What I thought was really cool at this particular place was they have their cemeteries, and you could they were up at the very top, like closest to the sky and sea.
Brain's pretty rugged, so like go up in elevation very quickly.
Yeah.
So like a lot of the cemeteries were built on those hillsides, and they'd just be overlooking the oceans, and there'd be access to these little roads, and I don't know, it was gorgeous. Yeah. So as cemeteries go, it was a lot different than where we live.
Yeah.
So
while we were in Vernazza, we decided to kind of lay low a little bit and try and catch up on sleep and have some more energy, because when we left there, we were stopping in to another village along the water and then continuing to the next city. And I think that day alone, we did 5 hours, if not more, of just hiking.
Yeah.
So we left there and stopped in Corniglia.
Yeah. And by the way, everywhere you go, it's not hard to have energy to hike, because, well, if you're eating pizza and pasta all the time, it's not that hard. But also there's gelato everywhere, and there's always multiple gelato places in each village.
Oh my God, so good. We tried different flavors everywhere.
Yeah.
So in Corniglia, we basically just stopped there for lunch and enjoyed walking around the small town, because there was not much there. I think that was the smallest of the
was-
ones we visited.
It was more like up on a cliff than the other ones. It would go up and down in elevation with the terrain. So if you just kind of followed the stairs as high up as they could go, then eventually you get this big panoramic view of everything. So
And it was really cool too because when we were hiking in to go visit, the train definitely went up steep and then it dropped down. And then so when we had to leave there to go to the next place, we had to hike back up that humongous hill we had just came from to go to the next place. And I think that was the most exhausting part of it.
yeah, it was.
But we got some gelato along the way and ate it as we climbed. So
Yeah.
made it a little bit better. So the next place was Manarola, right? All right. So in Manarola, this place was really cool. We were able to go swimming. There was a lot of local people and tourists that were down by the water.
Cliff jumping.
Yeah.
And people were afraid to jump off.
So
Actually,
were
this
you.
one, yeah, but I went a few times. This one girl was actually sitting on top of the cliff, and then she refused to jump off, and it probably been like 45 minutes. She was waiting and never jumped. So
No,
that
I
was
think she
one.
crawled back down, and I think that would
Yeah.
have been worse than just getting it over with.
And then there was also the Airbnb we stayed at was really nice, and the owner of the Airbnb actually owned a cafe that was right across.
The street.
The food was amazing, so
I think that was definitely my favorite one.
yeah, me too.
And we visited her shop a lot.
Yeah, and also we had dinner like on the side of a cliff.
Ate the most amazing bruschetta and had some drinks.
Yeah, so that one had a really good view, and it was literally sitting
Packed
on the
every single
and-
night.
Yeah, and sitting on the side of the cliff. Yeah, that was nice.
That place, when I think of Cinque Terre as a whole, was probably one of my favorites just because of the experiences that we had there.
Yeah.
And then when we left there, we went to the last place, and that was, I think it's pronounced Rio Madre. Not sure, but that's how I'm pronouncing it. And there we did a lot of downtime. We ate a lot of food.
Yeah, we relaxed a lot because we were just tired at that point, I think. So we needed a break. And the place we had that we were staying, the Airbnb, was actually pretty high up, so we could kind of see everything from the Airbnb, whereas the other ones, you couldn't really as much. You couldn't see the whole town or the village, but you could see in this one. So
Yeah. I think this was the one that we were closest to the water,
yeah,
for
it was.
sure.
So we took the high-speed train to Rome.
It
After
was
that,
like 4 hours.
4 hours.
Yeah.
We saw a little bit of Tuscany.
We arrived at our hotel,
Yeah.
getting ready to settle in for the night to take off on our flight to come back home, and we didn't have our passports.
Yes, we forgot our passports, and so then we had to go back to the train station, which luckily was basically connected. We had to go back to where the train came in to the airport where a hotel was, and then take a small train back to the big train station, and then try and find Wi-Fi. No one was helpful.
Yeah.
I will say that people were not friendly.
Well,
the
it was
most
just
part.
hard. We were trying to get in touch with our Airbnb hosts that we were with because we had left them in the room. And we were hoping that she would get our messages so that by the time we got there, we were able to collect them and get right back because we only had so many hours before the train stopped running for us to get back into Rome to make our flight.
Eventually, we got in touch with her and figured it out, and there was a language barrier too, so it was even more difficult.
Yeah, but she was super helpful. She ended up meeting us in a town closer to the train station so we
That was
wouldn't have to
Laspezia.
buy an extra ticket. And then I sent Case off to go find her to collect the passports, and I went right to the ticket booth and I purchased our tickets back to Rome.
And it was, the train was like 20-minute thing,
Yeah.
you know. It was 20 minutes from buying the tickets to the train leaving, and we couldn't, you know, we were trying to stay overnight in Rome, so we didn't want to miss our flight because we had already just spent over 500 euros on getting back and forth. So then we took the 4-hour train back to Rome again. And at that point,
were
made it to the
exhausted.
station. We're like, oh, we need to get to the airport. And there were no more trains running from the train station to the airport we needed to get to.
Because our trains were running late.
Yeah. And so at night, the train station is sketchy.
Yeah.
It just is. And then you leave the train station that night, it was raining, and there was this huge line waiting for taxis, and the underground system wasn't working either. So, and it's not like you could walk to the airport. It was a 45-minute taxi ride. So
yeah. So we had to stand around in the rain after trying to figure out if we could take a bus, and those also weren't going to where we needed to get. So we were running around, and there was this line of people that had just come off of the trains that were hoping to get a taxi to wherever they were going, and the line was so long. It looked like if you had stood in that line, you would have been standing there for hours. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I've done this before. Let's go over here and try and call a taxi.
Yeah. And then she puts her hand out, and I'm like, are we supposed to be doing this? No one else is doing this. And some taxis would drive by. I said, we need to get out of here and not be here until 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And so we did get a taxi. Somebody stopped to pick us up. So we beat the line by a lot from there, and we made it to our hotel and
went to bed.
Got a good night's rest.
Yeah.
And then
we're up
took
early in the morning.
9-hour flight back, really, which took a little longer. But
yeah, and weather. Yeah, so that was our honeymoon.
Yeah.
We had an amazing time, and we'll put everything in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your post notifications and leave us a comment below. And I will also attach our itinerary.
And it's worth the visit as long as you don't forget your passport.
Yeah, don't forget your passports.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you guys next Friday.
See you next Friday.